Makes their way back for our kind of grand finale here. So we are going to close the day. Before the prize drawing, we have our fireside chat with JP Batra and Merlin. Merlin's back for round two. But one thing that we like to do in every city, is kind of a tradition that we do, is we like to do a little honoree recognition or honoree award. So for those of you that are wearing a yellow lanyard, or if you're wondering, what's this color coding system, we do internal polling in all 28 to 30 cities that we go to. So it could be somebody locally here in the Rockies or in the Denver market. It could be somebody within our own FutureCon internal team that just see outsized or huge contributions to the betterment of cybersecurity, and we just, so you were nominated, or we just wanted to recognize some outstanding work for the community. So, as I call your name, we have a little certificate for you, and there's a little note with a little gift inside from our team. So come on up as I call your name, Lorenzo. If you wouldn't mind, could you help me get these out to as they come up, could you help me float these around to the crowd? So first, we have David McGuire from Air Methods, Deputy CISO. David, are you in the room? David, all right. All right, we have Robert Jean from the American Financing Corporation, CISO. All right, come on up. He's in the hallway. Robert! Pour one out for Robert. We'll have it for him. Our friend Herbo from SME, Systems Administrator. And good to see you again, Herbo. Eric Decker from Navajo Transitional Energy Company, Director of IT. Eric. I think it's Eric there in the back coming up. Kaiser Cooper from Western Union, Director of IT Audit. Kaiser? I know, and some of us I know it's so busy, they can't stay the whole day, so that's all right. Cybersecurity never sleeps, so I know you will. Tim Brown from Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration, Director of Technology. Again, with us in spirit. Andy Balome, Alton Technology Director of IT. Thank you. A round of applause is due, even if they're not in the room. John Bartlett from Alute Federal, CISO. John Bartlett? There's John Bartlett. There you are. I even tried to do you in flare. You did. You made me embarrassed myself. Sorry. Congratulations. Kelly Barnes from the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. All right. Charles Ball, Transact Bank, CISO. There he is. Congratulations, Charles. Here, I'll just give it to you. Thanks, Lorenzo. Mark Arnold from AMG National Trust Bank Compliance Officer. Thank you, Mark. Denise Lord from Lockheed Martin Space, IT Systems Engineer Analyst. I know I saw Denise earlier. You in the room, Denise? Gone but not forgotten. Manny Zapian from Canvas Credit Union, AVP of IT and SecOps. Manny, still round of applause. And then the last two, these fantastic gentlemen off to, is this stage left, my right? And then are going to lead us into our fireside chat. So our keynote speaker from earlier today, Merlin Namuth, the CISO for the City and County of Denver. And last but not least, JP Batra from Blue River International, our second fireside chat host for the rest of the afternoon, the CIO and CTO. All right, so you've seen probably plenty and enough of me today, so I'm going to turn it back over to Merlin and JP for what I know will be a fantastic fireside chat. Adversarial AI, defend, detect, and govern. Take it away.
you very much. And thank you, everyone, for staying around for the last session. Let's make it very, very engaging. And we got a stellar speaker here to give us insights into so many things. Hi, my name is JP Batra, president of Blue River International Consulting Company, interim CTO, CIO, and implementing large-scale AI innovation and governance frameworks into Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and state systems, including work at State of Colorado, as well as cybersecurity background implementations in the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 space, including doing digital identity strategies for State of Colorado, Gen AI operationalization proof of concept, and service delivery frameworks, and a couple of other related initiatives. Very pleased to be joined by Merlin. I mean, we already heard a very, very engaging conversation, a presentation from him during the daytime. There's such a wealth of information that he carries that I created a cheat book to guide my own self so that I don't go into hundreds and hundreds of conversations because, as he put it during the afternoon session, he could have been going on for another 11 and a half hours, right? So to circumvent that, I'm ready. Another thing, as I'm noticing, is that he's already finished his pizza. That's one way to actually rein in him a little bit. Little intro about yourself before we get going, Merlin.
Well, you guys all know me, and I see some empty chairs, so I think everybody, those people left to go work on their incident response plan, so that's awesome. The rest of you have great plans in place, so yeah, you get to stay and enjoy. So yeah, I mean, you already heard my intro earlier, so I think with that, we'll just have a interactive, and again, just like with Keynote, we want this to be interactive, so if you have any questions, comments, or rebuttals, just don't throw things. But let's have a lively discussion here. This is, fireside chat, so it should be casual, and let's learn from each other.
Yeah, so you do yourself a little bit disservice by not talking about all these serious accomplishments you have had across both the private industry as well as the merger and acquisition, and as well as the federal systems that you've worked in, and now at the city of Denver. So the fireside chat that I'm going to hold is going to be a carry forward of the presentation that you did in the afternoon. Let's look at the city of Denver, 15,000 employees and a ton of agencies, right? And then add to it the businesses that do transactions here, the citizens who interact with the city systems, right? The attack footprint is massive, and there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. But to bridge your afternoon presentation on incident response and carrying it forward to TVM, threat and vulnerability management, and IR, one of the biggest questions I have is from an overarching experience perspective. What's your journey in the private-public sector been like, and how have you seen the transition? Because that's a global viewpoint that I would love to learn about you.
Okay.
Curveball,
yeah.
Right?
Thanks, JP. And I actually, a few people asked me after the keynote of, kind of what was my career journey. So briefly, I'm not going to talk too much about, but I started off in IT way back when, my 486 SX25 computer, running Windows 3.11. My only formal class in college on computers was WordPerfect for DOS. So how many WordPerfect for DOS people we have? Awesome, yeah. And to this day, Microsoft Word still does not do some of the stuff that WordPerfect did. Like reveal codes, that was awesome. You could do anything you wanted to format. So for those of you who didn't experience that, I'm sorry you missed out. But I got in IT, and then very early in my career, I took the Checkpoint Firewall class, and I was smitten. I really enjoyed that, learned about security. I'm like, I think I want to transition my career to focus on security. I stayed in technical roles for a number of years by purpose, because I did see myself as eventually wanting to become a leader in security. But I felt like to be an effective leader, I needed to have a really strong technical background. And that has served me well. I think that was a good choice for me. So in terms of technical, I did engineering, architecture, and obviously incident response. I was an incident responder at Lockheed Martin. I did digital forensics there. I could probably do a little bit of forensics now, but things have changed obviously a lot since then. But I understand the principles, so like I can give a presentation on incident response because the core foundation of that doesn't change. And then after Lockheed Martin is when I started moving into leadership. So since then I've led 7 different security programs, the four of them with the CISO title. I always make that distinction because you probably hear a lot of people say, oh, well, I was like the CISO, or I had like CISO-like responsibilities. I can tell you, at least from personal experience, that it's a big difference of having the CISO title versus not having the CISO title and leading the security program. So I always make that distinction. And so in terms of public-private sector, I've spent most of my career in private sector. Lockheed Martin's basically a public sector. It functions a lot like the government. So I consider that. And then I did work on a contract with the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Fort Collins for a couple of years. So that was my experience at public sector before coming to the city.
Nice, thank you. So let's bridge it to your past experiences in the threat landscape and what you're seeing now. In other words, by proxy, I'm asking, what does your job description as a CISO at City of Denver looks like, because you got such a huge attack footprint and so many things to take care of.
So everybody always says that no 2 days in their job are the same, and that's, I think that's true for the most part. I can definitely say that with my job. It's like, oftentimes, and I'm sure other people are this way as well. It's like, I'll set aside time in my calendar to work on something, and oftentimes that keeps getting moved out further in the week and into the following week because things come up that I need to deal with. My days can look like I can go into like very technical meetings with some of our vendors. So my team knows that my alter ego is Marvin the Martian. So how many people remember Marvin the Martian from Looney Tunes? All right. So you remember Marvin the Martian? He's like, I'm getting angry, very angry indeed. So my alter ego is Marvin the Martian. And so when my team is like having a meeting with a vendor, I'm like, does Marvin need to come to that meeting? And they're like, yes, Marvin does. So the angry inner self will come out, not inappropriately angry, but definitely firm as I need to be. So that's kind of a running joke that I have with my team, and so they'll say that Marvin needs to come. But I'll go into like very technical meetings. So again, I haven't been hands-on technical for a number of years, but I still understand a lot of the core principles. I maintain my SAN certification, so that way I can, maintain some understanding of some of the technical things going on in security. But I can go, a very technical meeting with my team and a vendor to, the next hour might be meeting with audit. I have someone from audit here in the audience, and or going meeting with mayor's office or city council, and I think that. As a CISO, you need to, whether you're the CISO of a small organization or a large, complex organization like the city, it's good to be able to have that diversity that you can go into very business, very formal meetings with executives of the city to, getting down to the zeros and ones with vendors.
Nice, thank you. That's pretty comprehensive. You touched on something very interesting, vendors, right? My personal experience from the innovation side of the equation on IoT and AI, agentic AI workflows and LLMs is a fair amount of adversarial AI attacks creeping into the system, especially in terms of agentic AI workflow, because there's IAM in play right in between, because one agent has to trust the other agent from authorization and access perspective before it can be chained with each other. But that said, switching to the cybersecurity hat of implementations that I've led, one of the things I keep hearing from the vendors, large vendors that probably you deal with too, and I want your take on this, is that all these vendors are promising that, hey, we also are using defensive AI in our tools. We have upgraded our tools. Look, we are doing behavioral modeling. We are doing anomaly detection. And I want to know from you, from a CISO perspective, in your experiences, how advanced are those? Are they keeping up with the threat actors, or there's a lot of hype? Are these tools trying to really keep pace with the bad actors? What's your experience?
It depends. So, I mean, AI is, so it's kind of the same thing as like when cloud first came out. You know, as a security professional, I'll be like, oh, this looks good, or oh, this is like really bad, you know? And so there's always two sides of the coin when you're working in security with new technology. And, you know, same thing with AI. My team, earlier this year, we purchased a SOAR tool that uses AI, and it's amazing. You know, we're still working on doing some integrations with it, but we are really, really excited about the capabilities of that. So as most security programs, I don't have enough people, and so I have to supplement that with AI and other automations to be able to help make up for that, as well as you know, outsourcing some stuff to third parties. So AI is definitely helping us, you know, from a sort perspective, be able to sort through just mounds and mounds of data and automatically respond when it sees you know, different thresholds that we have put in place. On the flip side of securing AI, I have to take a deep breath because you know, who here has been happy with how Microsoft pushed out Copilot to us? Yeah. How many people had like great direction from Microsoft on how to secure your environment before Copilot got pushed on you? Yeah. So, yeah, we've been struggling with that. And been talking with different people, met with Gartner this week, and they have some good resources. So if you have a Gartner subscription, they have some good resources. So if you're in the same boat that I'm in, and you know, just being really concerned about how secure that is, you know, definitely look them up. Yeah, in terms of, I think vendors are playing catch up with securing AI. So, you know, again, I'm still interested in technical stuff. So some of my reading and studying I've been doing is on AI, so that way I become more versed in it. And right now, unless you know something, JP, I have yet to learn. I don't think that there's really much of anything that can detect like prompt injection type attacks.
Well, this is where my implied question was. Some of the vendors actually are indeed promising that, and we can have an offline conversation on that. I can share because it's not verified data by me. I just don't want to be speaking about those tools in front of you. But this agentic, this is where I went because I've spanned both sides of the innovation, AI innovation, AR, VR innovation, as well as cybersecurity side, right? In one case in 2023, before I did the state gig, my time was actually officially split between both the sides, innovation management as well as cybersecurity implementations worldwide for a Fortune 500 company. And this is the place, and name one of those California companies that have some very advanced tool capabilities. I think you can name that in the head. They were promising a fair amount of advanced firewalls and advanced detection so that they could actually detect a lot of signals that you're talking about. But I haven't seen that proof positive, and I just was curious as to, have you seen it? But I know about some tools which are doing it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. A lot of empty promises, and I think, you know, especially when it comes to a prompt injection type attack, I think that's going to be very, very difficult to detect something like that because it's all in the context. And so been reading about that as well as, you know, with a prompt injection, is that going to taint, you know, the data in the LLM, and you're going to get these false, you know, type results when AI is querying the data. So I'm not sure how I know there's a lot of promises. Hopefully, you know, people who are smarter than me are figuring that out because, you know, that is a real concern.
That's a real concern, but there's some organic ways too, something that I can share openly. I'll draw an analogy to, remember once upon a time when we were writing code and companies really wanted to make sure that there was no SQL injection that would happen, right? One of the ways to do that, and this is a very rudimentary example that I'm giving, if you presented a form to an end user for a financial services or a regulated industry, and the answer is YES, yes, or NO, no, then the code was curated to ensure that that's the only characters that could get in and anything else was rejected. Now, if you take that parallels forward, LLMs itself can be trained to say, here are the prompt signatures. This is what my system's behavior signals look like. And if my code is going to do something different, that's the instrumentation that I'm plugging into my code. So in absence of a tool, there's some organic things that you can do to prevent, not necessarily detect, but just to even mitigate that prompt injection from happening upfront. So these are the organic measures that I'm familiar with, but I will definitely hit you up for an offline conversation on this. So moving forward, another thing that's happening a lot, and this is very hard to detect, and it actually does not even matter, is adversaries are using AI to probe security perimeters and firewalls and attack in ways that we did not even know before, right? And in this case, instead of doing a guessing games, one of the signals is that, am I beginning to see a ton of new kind of vulnerabilities that I've never seen before, right? Am I beginning to see incidences that I was not well versed with before? These are some kind of signals which is telling that the adversaries might be using AIs, surfacing issues that we were not aware of. Gone are the days of those dangling pointers or open web ports or developers leaving things aside. That said, from a city of Denver perspective, are your team seeing an uptick in vulnerabilities and a type of incidents? Because that might be signaling something else going on.
I mean, we always see, attempts of people. I mean, everyone here, you see attempts breaking your network. I think it's very difficult to determine if the adversary is using AI or if it's just scripts. Because we've been seeing bots for a long time, attacking, trying to, they're scanning our networks. I mean, Shodan's been around for a long time, doing security for us, I guess. If you should run Shodan against, if you're not familiar with it, it's an open source tool. So you should run against your environment and see what's open to the internet. So I think it's very difficult to see that. I think where AI would come into play is like when it sees that there's open port, and then it's changing its attack or its reconnaissance against your network, and I think that's where you can determine that AI is actually being used.
Right. That's a great segue into my next point here. We are talking about security parameters which no longer exist, right? And then let's talk about where security is totally bypassed. I think many of you and us are familiar with this Lazarus attack, right? The North Korean-based cyber attack that happened where they used the resumes of Google employees, they used the profiles of Apple, and then they got development jobs inside defense contractors, inside crypto companies, inside organizations, and then they started poisoning or putting code into the GitHub or the repositories. In other words, they didn't actually fake or spoof identities. They got in with credentials because they got hired. And then this brings two very important questions from a city standpoint, because that's very, very profound. Detecting this is pretty hard, and of course, eventually these attack footprints surface. Gartner is predicting that by 2028, every 1 in 4 applicants and job hires could potentially be a deepfake. That is a very, very forward-looking advanced signal. So for you, there are two questions. One is CISO HR partnership, another is related to more technical side of the equation, identity and access management. From identity, it has become now a new frontier, something which was foundational for onboarding and offboarding people, right? So from an IAM perspective, is the security paying more attention to who's being onboarded, who's being offboarded, and role-based access and attribute-based access, so that there's very tight controls, which then leads to the zero trust architecture? That's the first question, and then I'll bring up the HR aspect of it.
Well, one of the advantages I have is that we're local. And I've talked with some of my peers who are international, and it's a much bigger challenge for them of, especially, it's been in the news a lot lately of, people from like North Korea and China, people who want to do, countries who want to do harm against the U.S., of those, people located in those countries applying for jobs and getting jobs at large corporations. So So I mean, that's much harder, for that, because it is easier to do deep fakes. Now, one of the things in talking with someone, they said that HR will run through a script and they'll ask the person, or it could be the deep fake, to do something like scratch the side of your head or do some actions like that, and watch how watch the video really closely of what's happening, and sometimes they can tell that it's a deep fake. But yeah, for us, it's not much of a concern since we're local.
Oh, that's a great point. If I could share the experiences of the state for the digital identity, since you talked about local, there's one thing that could be done is that while building the digital identity strategies for the chief digital officer and the CCO of state of Colorado, one of the things that we ended up doing and putting as a part of the security strategy, digital identity strategy, is that not only did we use 863 IL2 for facial recognition, but we tied it with the signals of you, the residents of the state of Colorado. For example, your PII data, we didn't take it out. We just went diving into your history. Are you truly that person? Before I give you a digital identity, let me translate your physical you into a digital you by knowing that it is indeed you, so that identity faking does not happen. But that means that these digital identities, when the state starts rolling out, and it's all private because there's nobody who's going to look at it, we just want to see that you have a tax record, you have a home address, you are going to school, you are working somewhere, so that we tie the IL2 facial recognition with actual signals in the field to know that it is you. But that takes care of the local things that, as you put it out. Can you shed some light on the conversation you had with your counterparts about the applicants and the people who are coming from the outside, and how the city would be able to protect itself? Because this addresses only local issues or local hiring.
Well, the context of why I brought it up, that it's not much of a concern for me, since we're local, is that people get interviewed in person. So the deep fakes are not not much of a concern for us. Where it is for international companies, where they do conduct job interviews like over Zoom or something like that.
Okay, I see. Sorry, I misunderstood. But the second piece, so probably that gets answered by what you just talked about. Does city allow remote workers or remote hiring from out of state? Is this, okay, it does not. State does, but city does not. Okay, so that mitigates the problem of that I reserved as a second question for you regarding the HR and CISO partnership. Do you see any other reason from onboarding, offboarding perspective to be tied in with the HR processes at all?
Well, yeah, several. I mean, I think that it's been an ongoing issue, like I think my entire career, and I'm sure everyone in this room struggles with this as well, is that when someone leaves the organization, offboarding is a difficult process, and to make sure that people's access is all removed. It gets more difficult if now your applications are integrated with Entra or Active Directory, and so, or if you have Okta or something like that. If you don't have every application there, you may not know what all that particular person has access to. So offboarding is very difficult, and so it does take a lot of coordination with HR to help them understand the importance of it, and to also make sure that they're kicking off the right process. And and that's where automation can really come into play to help with that.
Awesome. That reminds me, you did talk about IT and security partnership, and you touched on very key things. The groups, the permissions, the Active Directory, the forests, which are probably sitting out there dated. Maybe it needs to be upgraded or cleaned up. Does IT engage cybersecurity whenever they're doing this kind of work, or it's that they just go and do things on their own?
Both. We have a pretty good security culture at the city. So a lot of people in IT do understand the importance of security, and so they'll go off and do things on their own and let us know. Okay.
So let's switch back to your private experience. M&A doesn't apply to city. However, from a merger and acquisition, two companies merging or divesting, and from a private regulated industries, financial services, you were with fintech too, right? What did you see in terms of security breaches or security handling, or how much more of your brain cells got tapped into during those M&As? Because that's actually a pretty wide open world out there.
It is, and not to be pompous or self-promote myself. If you're really interested in that topic in M&A and you're working in an organization that's doing a lot of M&A or divestitures, a good friend of mine and I gave a presentation at RSA last year, so you can go look up on RSA conference website and you can watch that presentation, because we go into a lot of different things that you need to do, both for your due diligence before the acquisition, as well as things you need to do like day one. For example, you need to make sure you have admin credentials in that acquired company day one after the deal is closed. Because the thing is, like when your company acquires another company, the acquiree, there's going to be people there like, oh, I want to work for the combined company. It's too big of a company. I'd rather go do something else. And if it's some of the main knowledge workers, you're going to lose a lot of knowledge, a lot of information is going to go out the door quickly. So you want to make sure you get access to that. But yeah, there's just a lot of things you have to go through, in terms of M&A security. And there's companies that have been compromised. I mean, there's been breaches in the news. I think was a few years. Well, I think it's a number of years ago now that. I think Marriott acquired a company, and the threat actor was actually active in the environment. They know that when they acquired the company, so they had to deal with that security incident. So it is really concerning. And one of the things that I tell people is that when companies are looking to get acquired, they're not investing a lot of money in their security. They're investing a lot of money in their sales and revenue, so that way that the company can be worth more money, so they can make more money in the sale.
Great point. And even IT due diligence is an afterthought during M&A. They're mostly interested in the financials and what they can do with the integration of the company. But awesome point. But staying between that realm of private and public side, tapping into your experiences, what transferable lessons can you share with us? Because both sides have their aspects. City and the state systems have different way of working, and the private has different. What do you see? Can you draw some parallels and some contrast and some transferable lessons for a person like me to walk away with?
Based on the 9 months I've been at the city, there's really not that much difference, quite frankly. I mean, we're trying to protect things. The biggest hurdle for me, taking this role, was learning the procurement process. Very, very different in public sector. And so I'd learn all the rules and make sure I'm not breaking any of the rules, and making sure I'm going to bid when I need to, and all those kind of things. But in terms of like protecting the data, it's the same. Now, of course, my reporting is a little bit different, because I do present to the mayor's office on a quarterly basis, and then I just recently stood up an internal CyberSecurity risk task force that has representatives from different agencies. So I'm going to be accountable to that group to make sure that we're moving things in the right direction. But there's not as much difference as what people would think.
Oh, that's very intriguing. How about, that's good to know, actually, that there's so many similarities between the two. How about decision-making process? Is there any legislative mandates that comes out to the city too? Does that impact what you end up doing or not doing?
Yeah, I mean, some, but some of the legislative stuff is, applies to the private sector as well. Like, Colorado has like one of the tougher privacy laws in the country. And yeah, I mean, whether you're private sector or public sector, you have to adhere to those. I think that with public sector, you're more in the public light. I've already been in the news in a okay way, not a bad way. Wasn't anything I did wrong, but everything I do, does have a public lens on it, and so I have to be a little bit more, deliberate and a little bit more careful about the things I do. Especially like every email that I write is, could be called up as part of CORA for Colorado Opens Record Act. So I have to be very thoughtful and very careful about things I do, so that way I'm protecting myself, protecting the city, protecting my boss, from any embarrassments.
Curiosity question: what is the data retention policy?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. No, that's fine, because in some cases it's very well known, 5 years, 7 years. In some cases, this is a fair answer. Totally good with that. Thank you. Because, things that should not be known should not be known. Otherwise, it can be used as an attack also, right? So coming back to the conventional vulnerability management process, now, it's been 2 years since I did the vulnerability management for this Fortune 500 company, and in that case, we were still having those conventional, the CVE scores. Okay, well, this application has a low CVE score, now it is tied to another application that's critical, therefore it needs to be elevated. So there was a lot of manual intervention in progress. Your knowledge being more current, have you seen automation start getting into play in this world?
It's really starting. I'm not here to, again, promote anybody. I did work for Tenable for a few years, and they recently announced their exposure management. And I'm like, ooh, finally, we're moving vulnerability management in the right direction, because just because the CVE score is critical doesn't mean it's critical for my environment. It depends on where that vulnerability lives in my environment. It might be behind 5 different technical controls, and I'm not as concerned about it. And exposure management is supposed to help bridge that, because let's face it, we face so many vulnerabilities and so many patches every month that we literally cannot stay on top of it. Nobody can stay on top of it. Nobody's 100% patched. And exposure management will help with that. Now, I think part of our challenge is that some of the compliance standards need to catch up with that, because like PCI says you have to have all your critical vulnerabilities patched within 30 days and all your highs patched within 30 days. It's virtually impossible for any organization to be able to do that.
Right. Okay. That brings many additional questions. But before I proceed forward and we continue at our fireside chat, open to audience. Any questions come up so far from anyone? Oh, there's one question up there.
On the exposure aspect, I know there's Tenable's doing it, Qualys is doing it. We're a whiz shop. To your point, it's awesome. But compliance also, you have to get your auditor to agree. In whiz language, issues are, the items that you chase versus something that might be deeply buried. And even though it's critical, you can't get to it. Or, you're 5 layers in on a kill chain. So yeah, those tools are developing, and Wiz is a great tool. I wanted to ask you, AI, are you staffing your internal red teams to pen test AI, or right now at this phase just going out to some industry leaders in pen test? And do you have any, top 3 that you work with, or any you work with?
We're still in progress of developing that internally. So I have sent people off to some training on that. So we're building out that capability internally.
Any other questions or comments? I mean, I'm sure you folks also have deep insights. So somebody, there's one more.
Joe, I knew your hand would go up. I just knew it.
Well, just trying to keep the conversation going. So I know there's a lot of uncertainty with AI, but let's talk about maybe 1 or 2 AI wins, maybe some of the vendors or partners you're working with, and you saw them use AI, whether it's in logging. Where's a win that you've seen, maybe an early, maybe it's not a total win yet, but what are some positive notes that we said, yeah, this looks intriguing, this is going to help us?
Yeah, so the AI the SOAR tool that uses AI, we're really excited about the potential for that. If you're interested in it, you can ask me offline, what the name of that tool is. What's really cool about it is that, again, we just purchased that just a few months ago, so we're still working on the integrations. But it has like a ChatGPT type interface to it, so I can say, I could literally just converse with it and say, change Joe's password and kick all of his active sessions off the environment, and it'll just go off and do it. So lots of potentials with it. It's a great framework. We're using it for some of our offboarding activities to make sure that we're quickly able to remove user permissions as needed, especially in emergency situations where someone is being terminated right away.
Any other? There's one more hand up, went up.
Hi, thanks for being up here and taking the question. Mine's going to go back to a very simplistic question, but the city and county of Denver is having a shortfall on tax revenues, which will impact your budget. So all these tools and all these fancy speaks will cost money. How will that impact your ability to respond to incidents, regardless of size?
Yeah, no, great question. And we've already purchased those tools, so I have that in my budget, and I'm not worried about losing budget to not be able to renew those tools. And one of the people on my team is a programmer, and so he does nothing but create automations. Because the team, just like everyone, my team is too small for the mission that we have in front of us, and so we use lots and lots of automation. For example, one of the automations, which I think is so cool, I can't take credit for it because the team had this in place before I started this role, is that if we see a user account get taken over and an adversary tries logging into it from a foreign IP address, it will then go check our ticket system to see if they had if that person had requested international travel approval. If no, it will then scramble that person's password and kick off all their active sessions in the environment, and it all happens within 10 minutes. And I mean, that's just amazing. I never heard of anybody putting something like that together. So, kudos to my team for putting that together. So I think you have to get very creative and identify things like that. That's just going to make your life easier, so you're not missing the gaps. Because, I mean, we all have budget. I've never been like flush with cash for any of the security programs that I've run. But in terms of protecting the residents of the city and county of Denver, the mayor does understand how important cybersecurity is. We had, I think Charlie might be here. Charlie came and presented to executive leadership in the city on the threats that CISO has been seeing. So they understand that. I feel pretty confident that we're going to continue our mission as we need to.
Anything else, or shall we continue with the conversation here?
I think
There's one more.
Yeah, question. As your role as the CISO of Denver, do you see like your influence kind of spreading into like neighboring smaller towns around the city, or even that influence kind of pushing some initiatives to the state level or even neighboring states, or kind of just how does that influence kind of branch out from where you are in the city?
Yeah, not at the state level. I mean, the state has their own initiatives that they're pushing down to like mostly smaller counties and municipalities. But I do partner with some of the other larger municipalities around the state. And because the thing is, like, if I'm facing an attack from a particular adversary, it's likely that they're facing it as well. And so it's really good to share that threat intel back and forth. So so those are the kind of partnerships I'm doing.
So that opens the door to public-private partnership too, right? Can you speak a couple of words regarding that? Is there any initiative? Of course, FBI is involved from a global cybersecurity standpoint, but are you one of the leaders who's fostering that public-private partnership to ensure that everybody benefits from a common threat, intel, and information sharing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I have lots of contacts in security. Came from private sector, and so yeah, we're, I have some informal groups that I meet with once a month, and others is just kind of ad hoc as we see things. But lots of intel sharing back and forth. Charlie at CISO shares stuff with us. I share stuff with him as we see things, because it makes us all better. Because the way I put it to people is like, I need every CISO to be successful, because they might be CISO of an organization that has my personal data, or my financial, my money, and I want to make sure that they're secure because I want to be protected as well. So it benefits us all, and I just see it as one big ecosystem, and not necessarily public-private, but that all of us just trying to fight the common adversary.
Okay, so let's start heading towards the governance angle. Let's dip our toe into that. One of the topics that I'm sure is at least dear to me and hopefully to the audience and you also is shadow AI, the unauthorized use of GPTs and LLMs by the employees, and of course, policies being policies, they can be put in place. But what can you say regarding shadow AI and how cities or customers should be dealing with that?
Well, definitely make sure you have a good AI policy in place. My team did develop one. We have one that's active in the city. And over the course of my career, what I found is that people will argue with people, but they won't argue with a policy. If you're like, isn't policy? Like, oh, okay. They won't argue with that, but they'll argue with me, as a CISO. So make sure you have a good policy in place. And then also, if your organization isn't going to allow those, then you need to block it.
Okay, and policies, being policies, yeah, right, I mean, the standards as well, and then the rules of the road. Anybody from the audience wants to share any insights into how shadow AI is being dealt in their organizations? I mean, you can talk in generics too, you don't have to name your organization. Anyone in the audience? It's a challenge everybody is facing, it's not new. Well, there's somebody who's raised his hand, thank you.
Thanks for the question. So one of the tools that we are looking at right now is a product called Turmeric, and it allows you to put governance in front of LLMs and agents specifically. And the benefit of having a sanction tool is you can kind of do user awareness training and education that says, hey, we know you want to use these types of tools because it makes you more efficient. It allows you to kind of work faster, get things, better results. But by using a governance tool like Turmeric, and there are others, we're just kind of experimenting with Turmeric right now, you give that sanctioned platform that you can then put governance around, right? Like you can detect if PII is going into it and say you're not allowed to use PII in this model, or financial data cannot be used. You can create specific agents to have specific types of conversations so you can actually get real granular with that governance policy. So it's one idea that we're exploring so that we can then change the behaviors of folks to use a sanction tool as opposed to Copilot and every other tool that's out there on their phone. And so that's one method.
Perfect, thank you. I wasn't remembering the name of the tool. I've not heard of the Turmeric, but there are other ones which are explicitly designed to ensure that nobody is able to enter PII. And not only do they actually detect it, but that gets reported too, because that's policy enforcement violation, right? Because that's a very serious matter. So the governance need to have a teeth around it too. Otherwise, people can just burn past that policy too. Interestingly, for a Fortune 500 company that I had conversations with, curiously, their product decision to mark 100 miles an hour, which had AI on the chip, so these guys were not new to it, right? Was that, one of the things that our conversation led to is that, sure, your product decision to march at 100 miles an hour without paying much attention to the public affairs and the policies and policy enforcement is that when these chips end up in Europe, that's where you get fined, because NIST AI risk management framework is voluntary in nature, right? This conversation is just hardly a month or two ago, right? NIST AI risk management framework is voluntary in nature. On top of that, we have implemented hard policies, but EU AI Act is actually mandatory. And on top of that, you need to have a third-party auditors ensuring that you're transparent. And I said, that's why companies get fined millions of dollars when you guys end up in Europe. So policy enforcement has become very, very important with teeth on it. Moving forward.
And going back to Joe's question is that, there's a lot of DLP tools now that are using AI, which, again, just like the exposure management, for vulnerabilities, is like this. I mean, this is a godsend, to be able to use AI and DLP, because how many people feel really confident in your data classification and that you have all your sensitive documents labeled appropriately? No one. I mean, let's just face it. And so some of these AI DLP tools that I'm seeing are able to just do that classification on the fly, which is awesome, and they'll make the decision of whether to allow it or alert on it or block it.
Wow, it reminds me of the the data classification is for business use only, this is confidential, and then make sure that you start marking it through Outlook and then it's enforced. It wasn't an easy experience, definitely, so I resonate with the point you just made. But one thought that has been percolating in my head, especially given the city of Denver and the vendors, the businesses, the supply chain, you talked about during the lunch session, the few critical agencies that you pay attention to no matter what, right? However, your SIM probably is loaded with alert signals, right? In addition to prioritizing for these, how are your teams managing all these alerts which are streaming in left and right? I mean, I'm not asking for the secret sauce, but in general, how do you sort through all of that?
I mean, for us, it's a combination of my team as well as a third party.
Okay. Well, add to it the adversarial AI intentional signals that they throw to actually ensure that the attack vector cannot be found because it's all drowning in the noise that's already inundating the SIM and the teams. That's pretty hard problem. But looks like there's not much you can share about how it's being done, right? So let's keep moving along from the point of view of governance and policies. Given all of these evolving landscape and threats that are out there, what adjustments and what are your teams doing in terms of ensuring that these governances, in absence of the tools that we just talked about, are being enforced? How is it being done? And are the policies being adjusted to account for AI agents that are in place or are going to get in place?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we have an AI policy that my team published. It's been several months ago. So we do have an internal AI policy. So it's just like any other security program. So we control things through policy. We have technical controls in place, and then of course we have our compliance standards. And so for the city and county of Denver, we have to abide by PCI. We do collect credit cards. So you go play golf, go get a dog from the animal shelter or something like that. We collect revenue that way. Also HIPAA data, so like Health and Human Services and other agencies that collect HIPAA data, and then we also have CISO, so that's more on the legal side of protecting client attorney privilege, as well as just sensitive information about someone's criminal activity or whatever. So those are the three that we have to abide by, and so But by following that, and everybody understands that their role for that compliance, and so that definitely helps to govern.
Okay, thank you. That's very cool. Thank you. Another thought in my mind is it's an analogy, right? I mean, the XDR versus EDR. This applies to the supply chain vendors. Initially using that analogy, on a general basis, EDR endpoint, well, what's the threat on this device, right? That's what EDR used to be. XDR extended to what else is tied to my ecosystem, the emails, the applications, or the other things that I'm using for my employer. If I use that analogy and move forward towards the current supply chain, you got vendors supplying, you got physical shipment, you got 7/24 monitoring, you got so many other things that are in play. If I use that analogy, we do not know what these vendors are using in their backdrop, in their ecosystem, if we were to use the XDR analogy. For example, AI tools. We don't even know how it's being governed. The traditional approach of vendor management has been, we send a set of questions, we ask them, do you have your SOC 2 certification? But that's almost like an EDR. We vetted the vendor's product and what it does. But now, with AI in the play, any thoughts on XDR analogy equivalent on the supply chain of the entire ecosystem, that the vendors that you use?
Yeah, for a number of years, I go much deeper in that into third-party risk and assessing a vendor before I allow them in. It's like SOC 2, Type 2, who cares? I mean, because their scope might only be focused on a particular portion of their environment, may not focus on everything. I don't know if people realize that with a SOC 2, you define the scope. Yes, we have to do it. I don't know. We can all take a drink of like, yes, we're forced to do it. It does give some level of assurance, but you definitely have to understand that that you set the scope on that. So at Citi, we do have a very strong vendor risk assessment process to where we ask the vendors. We go very deep on the questions we ask, and then we also depending on who the vendor is and the solution they're doing. We also do a pretty in-depth security architecture review of what they're doing on the back end. Now, for like us, being City County Denver, like none of our data can be housed overseas, and so that eliminates a number of vendors because they're like, oh, well, we do all our development in India, and we use the cloud in India. Like, nope, that's an automatic disqualifier, and they won't be allowed in our environment.
There was a question back there.
It's definitely a risk decision. If it's important enough, then they'll staff it appropriately to be able to assess every vendor, and we do that.
Okay. So we got 2 minutes left. So final question for you. From your wish perspective, whether it's security or policy or something, if there's one thing you could change, or if in a minute or so, if there's an overall things that you would like to talk about what should fall in place to address all of these evolving threat landscape or standards or security posture, whichever open topic, what would you like to have get done?
Well, if I could, have a rubber bottle and have a genie come out and he grants me one wish, I would say just more support from our organizations. CISO burnout is a big thing, and I think a main reason for that is that CISOs obviously understand the importance for security and risk and just everything that goes into that. But there's still just so many organizations out there that don't get that. That it's like Las Vegas. They're willing to gamble. The company's reputation, potential huge financial losses. I'm like, oh well, we're going to be okay. We don't need to do all these security things. And so that would be my wish, is that organizations would take security more seriously. And also, I think it is, companies who are willing to take that risk, it's like, do you really want to do business with them? Do you want them to have your data? It's like, do they care that little about their customers? Like, oh, well, they're just going to lose their PII, no big deal. They're going to have to, get a new credit card because, their credit card was compromised. It's like, really? I mean, so I think companies need to care more about this and support the security departments better.
Okay, thank you. And from my perspective, the wish would be that I hope entities and organizations begin to recognize that in addition to the standard incident response and the governances that we talked about, which are absolutely required and has to be as robust as you talked about during the lunchtime, my point of view or take is that we need to, in addition to that, also start looking for signals of our business systems logic to misbehave. That is a sure sign of an AI attack that we did not even know about. And the second one is to start recognizing that we need to be prepared for totally unknown, start expecting the unknown, and start doing active threat hunting so that we begin to root out these things before it manifests. But it's not common as yet. The flexible governance frameworks have not started falling in place, but my hope is that it will fall in place soon. With that, we are at point. I received a signal from them that we are at exact time. So with that, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Merlin.
Thanks, everyone.